Somebody said that I have a zesty voice.
What's that mean?
I don't know what that means.
Zesty.
Yeah, what
I know
the
what
hell?
it means.
I watched the podcast right here, and you will see this transcript section here. Instead of getting the transcripts from YouTube, I got the transcripts, I copy pasted the transcript from Spotify. I will practice for 30 minutes or 50 minutes maximum, because even if I want to practice for over 50 minutes, I can't do that, because after practicing for about like 40-50 minutes, I feel so exhausted, and so I don't feel the strength to keep going. So this is why every 40 or 50 minutes practicing with the scripts of, podcasts or TV shows, whatever I'm working on, I take a break. So my goal is to obviously practice for at least about 2 hours in total for today. Now I'm gonna set the timer. Okay, it's starting. Okay.
I don't know what that means.
Zesty.
Yeah, what
I know
the
what
hell?
it means.
I don't know what that means. I know what it means. It means I have a flamboyant voice. It means I have a flamboyant voice. Remember all the sources that I use for learning English. And as you can see, learning English with the script of sitcoms and TV shows not only help me to improve my speaking skill, but also learn words in the most efficient way. In terms of speaking English, podcasts will help you improve your speaking skill if you're on advanced level, but it will not help you learn words or learn English in the most efficient way. So I would say for speaking, podcast is 8 out of 10, but for learning new words or learn English as an intermediate level or as a beginner level, podcasts are 2 out of 10. When you're practicing with this podcast, you will not remember the lines, you will not remember the expressions, most likely you will not even remember the words that you learn from the podcast. At least, you will end up forgetting half of them at least. But the thing that you will remember is, you will remember the topics that they discuss in its podcast. You will remember the topic they talk about, multitasking. They talk about sleep apnea. By covering the topics they talk about in the podcast, discuss in the podcast, actually you think about the topic. Later in your life, if those topics ever come up, while you're having conversation with your friends or with your boyfriend, girlfriends, family, I don't know, if those topics casually come up, you can talk about those topics because you already thought about those topics, reflected on those topics,
Right. Remember when I told you guys that I wake up in the middle of the night sometimes and I can't breathe?
Yes.
Remember I told you guys I wake up in the middle of the night sometimes and I can breathe. For instance, breathe. Even this basic word breathe reminds me of a scene from Friends. So basically, there's a potential when you practice with TV shows, there's a potential that every single word might remind you something. Breathe, deep breath. I feel better now. I'm all better now. Or I feel better now. Rachel, in the first episode, Rachel is having this anxiety or panic attack. And then breathe, just breathe, deep breath or something like that.
Okay, just breathe. That's it. Just try to think of nice, calm things. I'm all better now.
Doctor was a dentist and he said it was OSA. So I looked that up and I was like, oh, it's obstructive sleep apnea.
So when it comes to having a conversation or talking about this sleep apnea, obstructive sleep apnea, you will have a easier time to talk about this topic compared to the scenario where you never thought about this topic or you never talked about this topic in English, not in your first language. The other very important advantage of this podcast is this is a 100% real life conversation. These people speak without a script. You see 100% natural conversation that American family speak about some random issues,
Because you're swallowing your tongue, basically.
Because you're swallowing your tongue, basically. Sorry, swallow and slow me down. Sorry. Are you through with that? Sorry. Swallow and slow me down.
Are you through with that?
Yeah, sorry, the swallowing slowed me down.
If you think about it, this basic word swallowing reminds me of a scene from Friends where Joey says, sorry, the swallowing slowed me down. But also I remember the scene where Monica says, are you true with that? One word might remind you many words, you know, and stories. As another part of my English learning process, I had learned and practiced English with talk shows intensely, and practicing with talk shows also helped me improve my vocabulary and speaking skill.
A million things went through my mind.
Like million things went through my mind. What goes through your mind? Talk show, Emma Stone, Jimmy Fallon. What goes through your mind?
What's going through a 30-year-old mind?
I mean, at first I was like, the broken neck lady's coming after me. You know, from Haunting of Hill House.
Bent neck lady.
Yeah, the bent neck lady.
I was like the broken neck ladies coming after me from Haunting of Hill House. I was like broken neck lady is coming after me from the Haunting of Hill House. Bent neck lady, yeah, the bent neck lady. The bent neck lady. It's almost been like 45 minutes, so I'm gonna take a 15 minutes break, and I'm gonna brush my teeth because I didn't brush my teeth after the breakfast. Now I'm gonna brush my teeth and take 15 minutes break, and then I'm gonna keep practicing. Okay guys, I told you guys I was gonna take like 15 minutes break, but I took over 20 minutes break, and I still, yeah. Anyways, now it's time to practice for the second round, okay? For another 40 minutes.
That was like,
Oh my god.
so just imagine somebody
disturbing.
over you going, I'm not
You have
sure.
to get on there. She's dying laughing. It's so funny.
She's dying laughing, it's so funny. She's dying laughing, yeah, she's dying laughing, it's so funny. She's dying laughing, it's so funny. I had no idea what was happening, and all those things went through my mind. I had no idea what was happening, and all those things went through my mind.
Oh,
Wait, so you couldn't breathe through your nose?
You couldn't breathe your nose. Okay guys, I'm gonna stop here. It's been almost how long has it been? Okay, I'm gonna stop here. I'm gonna take a coffee break, and then for like 15 minutes or 20 minutes. Okay, I'm gonna make my coffee while listening to the podcast. But before I make this coffee, I want to say one more thing to you guys. Is I would like to remind you time and time again, podcasts are 100% for those of you who are advanced level. Okay, it's not for improving your vocabulary 100%. It's not for learning English. It's just for mastering your English. First, I work on this podcast, but after I'm done with this podcast, I'm gonna go back to practicing with another TV show. I'm gonna keep practicing from normal people, but from where I'm left off, or you know, with talk shows, with YouTube videos.
Used to like bring you out of it because
You did not flu.
with her 2 years ago and get a sleep study
Call
done.
an ENT and get a sleep study.
Well, like I said, the one doctor was a dentist and he said it was OSA, so I looked that up and I was like, oh, it's obstructive sleep apnea. And like, I don't want that.
Wait, so what's obstructing your airways?
The tongue, I guess.
So you're-
If you do sleep, do you sleep with your mouth open, Mom?
Do you sleep with your mouth open, Mom? Do you sleep with your mouth
I
open,
didn't
Mom?
think so.
Guys, I took over 40 minutes break. I want to say something here. Some of you might ask this question, and you ask this question. I know that. Like, should I practice all at once, like an hour or 2 hours, or separately? Guys, your goal is to reach 2 hours or 3 hours a day in total. It doesn't matter how many minutes you practice in one session. You know, you can practice 30 minutes, 40 minutes, 50 minutes, an hour. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, if you make it to 2 hours at least, or 3 hours, then you're good. You're good to go, okay? So wait, you couldn't breathe through your nose. I don't know, I couldn't breathe. I know, like, I was like...
ENT
Yeah, Corey said,
and get a sleep study
Call
done.
an ENT and get a sleep study.
Yeah.
Corey said call an ENT and get a sleep study. ENT, right? ENT and get a sleep study. I didn't know what ENT stood for. I didn't know the meaning of ENT. So it turns out that apparently ENT means that ear, and nose, and throat.
But I mean, I definitely want to look into it.
I'm curious if anyone in the comments would know anything about that.
I definitely want to look into it. House of Cards. I'm curious. Again, House of Cards.
Oh, it's exciting, huh? This new direction we're heading.
Well, do you think we have to look into additional space?
I'm curious. If not me, then who?
Since I look into reminds me of a story, and the story is they're expanding their office in House of Cards. There's this scene where they're expanding their office or their work space, and so they look into this additional space. That was one scene, and the second scene is I'm curious if not me, then who? They're nominating someone as a Secretary of State. I remember the story.
I'm curious if anyone in the comments would know anything about that, if there's like a doctor or anything.
I'm curious if anyone would know anything about this in the comments. For instance, guys, my point is, I'm curious. I can remember this word curious easily from House of Cards. And also, I can easily remember the story that comes along with it, right? But for instance, there is no way I would ever remember this expression. I'm curious if anyone in the comments will know anything about that. I will never remember Kennedy saying something like that. Basically, when you practice with TV series, TV shows, movies, words come along with the stories because you're attached to the story with emotion. Podcasts are not for learning English. Podcasts are for mastering your English. So I'm curious if anyone in the comments will know anything about that.
But also because sleeping with your mouth open is, I forget why, but it's really, really bad for you. I don't sleep with my mouth open. But if you do you sleep with your mouth open, Mom?
Also, sleeping with your mouth open is, I forget why, but it's really, really bad for you. It's really, really bad for you. For instance, guys, I'm gonna stop here because I made it to minute 10, right? And I told you guys I only work on like the 7 minutes of the episode or 10 minutes of the episodes, and I made it to minute 10, I guess. So basically I'm gonna stop here, but I still have like, how long do I have here on my clock? I still have like, it's been only 14 minutes, so that means I still have like 25 minutes to go at least. For the rest of my time, for another 25 minutes, I will go back to the beginning of the podcast. I will start all over again from the very beginning. I don't continue with the rest of the podcast. Once I get to minute 10 or once I get to minute 7, I'm done.
Okay, first thing I want to address here is I don't read the comments on these podcasts.
Okay, first thing I want to address here is that I don't read comments on this podcast. First thing I want to address here is that I've been listening to this youth video, what it's like to grow up in Prague, young and European, because, I thought to myself, since I want to go abroad, at some point in my life, I thought I would binge watch those youth videos, and these are very, useful youth videos. In the future, like the next week, I might practice with this youth video. For instance, I might get the script of this youth video and practice with this youth video. Making YouTube videos in English was as someone, I want to go abroad. Since my childhood, I always wanted to go abroad. I've been still wanting to go abroad. Maybe Europe, maybe United States. I don't know what the future holds for me. But making YouTube videos was in English was a great motivation for me. So this is why, especially making YouTube videos, excites me all the time, because I have a goal, I have a purpose to improve my English, to create this international community, share my methods with you guys. So this is my biggest motivation behind creating YouTube videos, speaking English, because without this dream, there is no way I could motivate myself. So I think it's very important to have goals, guys. It's so important to have dreams. I don't know when my dreams will come true, but at some point I believe that it will come true. So I like being free and create whatever I want. So that also drives me, that's also my biggest motivation.